Journal Technologies Incorporated was selected because their system meets all of the juvenile court's functional requirements, including case and participant management, document handling, judicial tools, scheduling, accounting, electronic filing, probation management, reporting, and a public access portal. Their platform is modern, intuitive, and easy to navigate for both staff and the public. A major advantage of Journal is its high configurability, allowing our court IT team to make changes without costly vendor change orders, ensuring long-term adaptability and cost control. Journal also provided a robust project management plan, including training and support for court IT staff, readiness assessments, and a structured implementation process. Importantly, their system balances a modern design with a user-friendly layout to allow for an easier transition for our staff. Additionally, Journal Technologies' ongoing annual cost is approximately $700,000 per year, which was almost a third of the price of the next highest scoring proposal, delivering significant value to the court and the county. The implementation is expected to take 18 to 24 months at a cost of approximately $4 million. This includes project management and the design of case structures, workflows, document templates, and reports. Journal Technologies will also collaborate with the court to develop interfaces with our detention system and other external partners. They will provide data mapping support and conduct multiple data conversions to ensure a smooth transition of data from our current system. The implementation will include system testing, staff training, and conclude with a final go-live of the new platform. The ongoing annual cost will begin at this system go-live date. Oh, yes, absolutely.
What's the projected start date for implementation?
The projected start date is upon approval of this contract.
So they would start immediately?
Correct.
Okay.
The ongoing annual costs will begin at the system go-live date and will cover user licenses for both the court and probation, as well as the hosting and storage fees. These costs will also include a software as a service support model, ensuring the system remains under continuous warranty and receives regular software updates at least twice annually to maintain security, performance, and functionality for years to come. Since the court intends to fund the current year of this project using the Court Computerization Fund and the grant of $400,000 from OCJS, we are respectfully requesting a waiver of the second reading. The grant must be fully expended by December 31st, 2025, and in order for us to meet that deadline, we would like to begin implementation as soon as possible. We would like to thank you for your time and consideration. We would also like to extend our sincere appreciation to the County Department of IT and the County Law Department for their valuable support and collaboration throughout this project. Thank you very much, and we're open to any questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this a cloud-based storage?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And does this run off of a Windows platform? Because there's some courts that are having problems with their system that the Windows won't support it after a certain time. Is this based that way also?
So this would be an intranet-based platform, so it will run on whether it be Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, any of your usual browsers, and then it is compatible with our current Windows version that we utilize at the court and all of our Microsoft products.
So when Windows 11 goes away, you're not going to have a problem being able to continue this?
No, not at all.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Projected go-live date?
So it would be 24 months from the date of implementation start is where we're projecting it to be. And of course, we're trying to be very open and understanding that sometimes with a project of this size, things may transition a bit, so we didn't want to cut ourselves short. So
We're
it's
sadly aware.
absolutely.
Cornwall.
Through the chair, who will be in charge of overseeing this project?
So it will be myself as the Director of Information Services and Ms. Randall Nickerson, our Deputy Court Administrator, as well as then the Court Administrator and the judges will be the advisory council that
Okay.
we will.
And your name again?
Melissa McDaniel.
Okay, and second question, the 700,000 K per year for ongoing licensing, what funding source will cover these ongoing costs?
So, Madam Counsel, we did put that into the budget, and that would be included in the overall not-to-exceed budget of the 7.73 million that we have requested today. As it goes beyond that 8-year period that we projected this to go for, of course, that would be something that would be a discussion to have with our fiscal department as well as county council as to what portion the court would continue to fund, and then what portion that we would be respectfully requesting assistance of the county for.
Okay, so after 8 years, we went through a nightmare. So I was just trying not to have a nightmare with your system. I'm just a little concerned. So after the 8 years, so during that time, what you're telling us is if we should pass this, no costs, no fees, nothing else for 8 years.
We have attempted very much so to incorporate into that not-to-exceed budget almost every anticipated potential cost, including we have built into there an increase in the storage fees, if you see that per year, which is an amount not to exceed 5%, but will go with the consumer price index. So all of those sort of variable costs or additional costs or inflation is built into the not to exceed in a line item that you can see in the budget that was contained in the RFP, excuse me, not in the RFP, but in the contracts for JTI.
Okay, so for this company, are they, how did you do your, are they highly valued? That was another, Journal Technologies, that was another issue with our ERP system. We spent all that money implementing up front, and then something happened, and we had to have somebody else. We don't want that to happen to you guys.
So we did do our best to vet every proposal that came in addition to reviewing their RFPs, reviewing their financial statements, making sure, reviewing all of their qualifications and experience. We then reached out to the courts that had worked with them in both the state of Ohio and any of the references that they listed to then get feedback and assurance. Obviously, there's, we can't predict the unknown, but we did do our due diligence in addition to working directly with the vendor, having them do demonstrations with us, ensuring that they could meet the needs that we had. The demonstrations that we did, we actually provided them with scripts and specific case scenarios that we have to ensure that they could be built in their system to try and capture any of those potential areas.
Is there any language in the contract for clawback or anything like that if they don't fulfill their obligation?
So certainly, we have various milestones within the project, which would have to have joint approval of us as well as them. If we are not satisfied, then we would opt to, at our convenience, not to go forward with the remainder of the contract. Once we are go live, though, clawback is not applicable beyond, the year that you terminate. You would already be paying, typical like software fees, you're paying a year in advance, right? And so that year would not be able to be clawed back, but we would not be responsible for anything thereafter. During the implementation process, it would be up to those milestones. Approval, that would be authorized to be paid. If there's no approval, again, nothing from that date of termination would we be responsible for as it relates to implementation, so long as they have not already put into execution or, provided goods and services up to that point,
Thank you.
Let the record reflect Ms. Simon's in attendance. She'll go first, followed by Mr. Miller, Mr. Schlepper.
Okay, thank you so much. No, listen, iCase is long, should be buried. As a user of the system, I'm telling you, this is the best day. Thank you for doing all this. And I wanted to see if private attorneys will have access more easily for private cases. Are we going to have
Yes,
access?
absolutely. So that is one of our major goals as well. As part of, if this is approved, as part of our ongoing due diligence with our stakeholders, we intend to bring them into an advisory committee as we implement to make sure that we are also addressing those
Like
issues.
common pleas court, right? Like DR, I
yes.
mean, we have to get with the Century.
So that's part of it, and also a
Good.
public forward-facing interface. Now, obviously, certain records of juvenile court
Right.
cannot be public.
Right.
But we do envision a limited view of public display such that information pertaining to the court and to the public can be easily gotten without them having to wait on hold with the clerk's office in order to get that information, that basic information such as hearing notices and journal entries that don't contain any confidential information. I do also want to say that when I started the project, so the RFP was started in 2023, but we have been working and doing our due diligence since early 2021. And when we started that project, Ms. McDaniel and I were in two different capacities, her as project manager, now promoted to the director of IT. I was the clerk for the juvenile court. So this is near and dear to my heart. I do believe that this will allow a lot of automation to improve efficiency as well as just the work product of the clerk's office. You know, there's so many intricate details that I think the system will wholly serve.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Staffing and time spent on
Yes.
things that otherwise could be done just by having that docket open. Okay, thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And to what extent will the staff need to be involved in the implementation process? And if there's a fair amount of that, who will be in charge of coordinating the collaboration between the staff and the vendor on the implementation?
So that will largely fall on myself and my department. I have in addition to myself, we have a project manager that will be assigned to this and a business systems analyst who will be responsible for assisting in collecting requirements. We will be coordinating with all of the departments of the court as it is vital and we hold it in high regard to have staff input. They are the front-end users of the system, need to be involved in the design of the system as they are the ones that know how it needs to operate best and have the ideas for how to improve things. We have already begun developing we utilized an advisory team as part of the review process who attended the demonstrations, provided feedback, and so we're hoping that those same people will also be able to serve as subject matter experts. We plan on having subject matter experts for not only every department, but every case type and then division of the clerk's office. And we will utilize them. We have already begun planning with the directors of those departments how to pull away the staff from their daily duties in order to assist on this project.
So, in the aforementioned ERP project, we ran into serious problems where people were needed for regular responsibilities and for implementation responsibilities at the same time, and it didn't work. And so are we going to map this out in advance to make sure that when people are needed for implementation tasks, it's not going to be at the same time when they're needed for regular activities?
Absolutely. We will be working with a schedule that we will develop and send out to each of the different directors and have those subject matter experts participate. We've also found a dedicated space within the juvenile court building to allow for a dedicated workspace so people are not pulled away or feel the need or pressure to go back to their daily duties. So these will be assignments that the director and their managers will know ahead of time, and they will be able to report directly to the space that we have allocated so that they don't have to answer the phone or deal with somebody who may be walking up. They'll be in a separate location.
So how different is the new system going to be compared to the current system? Is it different enough that considerable training of staff is going to be required? And if so, who's going to conduct that training?
So your question, it is significantly different from a technological standpoint. However, from a user interface standpoint, we are already taking that into account. One of the big selling points of JTI is the configurability, my apologies, of the user interface. And so our intention is to make the user interface such that it will be an easy transition from the old system to the new system. And again, as Ms. McDaniels indicated, we will have those end users involved as much as possible as we're creating the user interface as well as the workflows, such that there is a smooth transition. That is definitely one of the things that we took into account and we're concerned about in terms of going to a new system. We would have to do that, you know, it is an inevitable step in the process, but we're going to make it as painless for the staff as possible.
So, go ahead.
Sorry, in regards to the training, just to touch base on that, we do have, the expectation is that my IT department will participate. The project manager and business systems analysts that we have are both, have experience in training. And then each of our primary court departments, the probation department, the detention department, and the clerk's office, have dedicated trainers. And so those trainers will be part of the training of this new system. Part of the contract with Journal Technologies is to provide a type of train the trainer, in essence, to be able to assist us and provide training materials and work with us to develop those trainings that we'll be able to provide to the staff.
To what extent are you going to use the county's IT department to assist with the implementation and training? They learned a lot of things the hard way, and maybe they can help you learn some things the easy way.
I definitely appreciate that. I will say that we have a wonderful relationship with the County Department of IT and have been working with them side by side throughout this project. They participated in the review, the RFP writing, as well as the reviews of the proposals and scoring. And we have been working with their project management team as well to gain insight and have them provide some support. And so we will continue to do that.
Thank you. And final question, is the payment schedule that at the beginning of each year, the project payment for that year would be made, but as opposed to the whole thing being paid in advance? Okay, thank you.
Hi there, and through the chair, thank you. I just had a question about training as well. It was a perfect segue, Council President. In my experience, you know, most software, SaaS or software as a service companies a contract will come with kind of a client success package, you know, in terms of how they're going to help your team onboard this. So did Journal Technologies offer you that kind of a additional component in terms of upskilling the team here, and what did that look like?
Absolutely. So part of the process, and one of the things I really liked about Journal, and even the recommendations and feedback that we received from Montgomery County, who was implementing this system, described that. They talked about how the vendor, every stage of implementation involves a court IT or train the trainer session, so that as we move through, we are learning it as they're rolling out each stage. So it doesn't wait until the end. So that we can then keep up and continually grow with the system as we begin to implement it. It was one of the things I actually liked the most about their project plan. So I hope that answers your question.
Anything further? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering if there was a representative here today from Journal Technologies?
There is not.
Okay, and then my last question, will this case management system connect with courts outside of Cuyahoga County?
So we asked for integration specifically with information. It has the capability. It has APIs that are easily used by other organizations where we could work and do implementations. In terms of our interfaces that we've done right now, those are all Ohio government entities that we regularly work with.
Okay.
If we found a need to do something with another entity outside of the state of Ohio, it's something that could be added on, but that
Okay.
was not anticipated in this. We've, you know, did the typical BMV and BCI, Ohio Supreme Court for the Supreme Court reports, our sister courts at certain levels, not full integration, but, you know, that which we would need. Our text message reminder program provider integrating with things like that.
The prosecutor's office and
Yes.
their case management system, as well as the sheriff's department, are also built into those.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Okay, if everybody's comfortable and you need this right away, if everybody's comfortable with 2025-0204 to the full council under second reading suspension, I'll accept the motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
If you
Chair.
could add Ms. Conwell
And Turner.
Kelly,
and Kelly.
thank you.
Okay. Mr. Applebaum. This has been a long-awaited, highly anticipated day. What do we go back? So when we first started, there was a hole in the ground over there on Lakeside Avenue that's now a convention center. That's how far back I go with you. Right, right. Well, welcome. And what I would like to ask the council is, Mr. Applebaum has a presentation. It would be helpful if he could get through it. If you do have questions that are necessary to ask, by all means, grab my attention and we'll do that. We will have plenty of time to go through everything regarding the jail. This will not be our last meeting. I anticipate going through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and we look forward to your presentation.
Okay, thank you. And if we can have the PowerPoint, there we are.
Oh, and also, council, these are the questions that
all-
we submitted with the answers.
Okay, and you all have a printout? Okay. The presentation is actually, some very critical things have occurred in the last few months. The presentation is briefer than you might expect because a lot has occurred that I can summarize, and then we can get into Q&A, I think is the best way to proceed with this. So thank you once again. Always delighted to come and present here, and the chairman is correct. From probably the first couple of meetings you had as a council, back then we were just starting out on the convention center project, so it's been a good, 15 years now or something like that on these construction projects that I've had the privilege of working with you on. The agenda for what we're going to do right now, I'm going to once again, as we go through this, I'm always going to come back to where we are in the process. So I'm going to go back to where we are, background, where we are in the process, just as a reminder. Then I'm going to talk about schematic design. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've accomplished during the schematic design phase, how the design has advanced, and then what the implication is for cost. Because what happened was we went through schematic design, then had our schematic design estimates and our reconciliation to budget. So I'll talk about where we now stand. And we'll then talk about next steps and where we actually stand on the project schedule. And then we'll have Q&A. So by way of background, you've seen this graphic before. This is an update of something that I've shown consistently. And you saw a version of this in our last meeting. And if you take a look at this process chart, where we were last time, and once again, going back to the beginning of the project, we started up, we went through the long and involved program and in project definition stage. Part of that involved the steering committee, the use of DLR as a programming consultant. We got to the point where that was accepted, retained our criteria architect, had our change of site, had all our analysis on the site. We got to conceptual design, divided up into two parts. When I was here last time, we had confirmed the program, we had launched into schematic design, and we were only into the beginning of it. If you take a look at what's in green down at the bottom of the fourth block where it says confirm budget, scope, and schedule in green, that's where I was. That's where we were when I was last before you. We had gotten through the initial part of conceptual design. We had done enough work that we could come up with a conceptual budget based on parametric cost estimating and a confirmed schedule. Those were the goals we were working to in terms of the program that we had. And that was the presentation that I made. Since that time, we have come to an important milestone on the project because we have completed schematic design, which is the second phase of what we call conceptual design. And what you see in red on the next box are the 3 things that we have accomplished that I'm going to report on, which is we completed the schematic design effort, which I'll share a little bit with you about. We have received our dueling cost estimates, one from our design builder, one from an entity retained by our design team. We have looked at those estimates. We have reconciled them, gone through them, made sure they're accurate. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then that involved the value engineering exercise, because we had to get our estimate and then bring our project within budget based on that estimate to see if we could successfully do that. Sometimes the budgets go up after that, sometimes they don't. I'll talk about what that process was here. And we also commenced our design assist process with subcontractors. I'll talk a little bit about that. So those 3 items in red are what we've accomplished. I'll then talk about what the final steps are for conceptual design, which is getting through design development, which will then lead us up to the GMP, which of course will be a critical point in the project. So, and once again, just as a reminder, and I really have this chart up here just to remind you who is involved in the project, but who is involved on behalf of the county, your team on this project. And once again, the county's core team, and we have the representatives in the room, Nicole, Laurel, and our representatives from the Sheriff's Department, Phil, Russ, and Rich. We are obviously your owner's representative, which is Project Management Consultant. That's my company. Ellis Katz and Chris Panicki are here. We do have a representative from our design builder, Gil Bain, who's here and could answer questions if we need them to. And of course, ultimately, after we get done with design development, we move on to the GMP. Design will be inherited by that design builder through their architect of record, and their subcontractors will build the project. That's the simple flow chart of how the project works.
Jeff, to interrupt, on the previous
Yes.
slide, you had start date for our new members. If you would tell us, was that start date
sorry.
from when you started, or?
Hold on just one second. I have hearing aids, and I shut my phone off, but it still comes through my hearing aid, so just give me a second. This is another problem with getting old. Okay, try that again. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. I'm there too.
Yeah.
You had start date. For our new members, if you could tell them, is it start date when we brought you in, or start date January of '23, or was start date back in, or actually go date was
We have
April of 18, so, I mean.
Oh, so just, we have start dates, we have stop dates, we have start dates, we have stop dates. So the.
I don't want to interrupt, but could you get us that timeline?
Yeah.
So they understand fully what we're
I
doing?
I will get that to you, but just in 3 sentences, basically what occurs here is after some preliminary work that is done under Armin Budish's administration, there's some preliminary work that is done. And then what occurs is there is a discussion about how the project will proceed. We actually get retained, PMC, as part of a typical qualifications-based process. We then wait a year, and I believe that year was 18 to 2018, because that was the year, for a year, the negotiation of the MOU for the steering committee was done. I think that was completed, and unless I'm mistaken, that was completed January of 19. And then we started in the steering committee process, steering committee meetings on a regular basis, and this is for the whole Justice Center project. We go through programming. We retained DLR for our programming. We're looking at all the options for all aspects of the Justice Center. We get to the point and of course, COVID comes in, so we readjust how we do our meetings. It has an impact, but we continue on through COVID. We get to a point where, at that point in time, the focus is on sites in Cleveland to get this done. Keep in mind, the steering committee had representatives from Cleveland, 12 individuals. We get to a point in the spring, in early 22, where we have a proposal going forward. Things have to be confirmed. We get to October of '22. That's the final steering committee meeting. That's when the project does not go forward on the Cleveland site. That's when the steering committee process comes to a halt. At that point in time, we're into a new administration. The project then proceeds continues, but it proceeds now looking at different sites. We get to the Garfield site, and since then, we've been moving forward with this process on the Garfield site. That's the summary. I'll get you a timeline with those specifics, but if that's responsive to your question. So when's the startup? We started up a few times, but now we're not stopping. Now we are moving forward, and everything is going quickly. So relatively quickly. So in any event, so what is schematic design? What have we done? And this is basically since we were last here in February. Here you have a listing of the design activities. I won't read you can read this yourself, but obviously what it means is we take all aspects of the project. We have various engineers. They're referred to as disciplines: structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil. So the design work is divided up among the engineers, and then ultimately that will be in trade packages for how it's built. So that's all established for all the packages. We create initial drawings now for building features, safety systems, fire, emergency exits. We do the overall building layout and the structural grid. This was all conceptual. Now this is actually drawings that are the actual basic drawings that will continue to build on for the structure of the project. Overall building layout, structural grid. We locate all the departments now. Everything that we know has to go into the building, we locate them. We show where they will be. We show furniture, equipment, and circulation shown on the floors. We show this in building sections and building elevations. Material and finishes for interiors are now delineated. What is intended for all of these areas. And, the massive project of starting to coordinate building systems, elevators, mechanical, electrical, fire protection, et cetera. And then furthering the development of the site plan. Where are utilities coming into? Where's parking, traffic flow, initial landscape? Now, once again, these are schematic design. This is the first iteration of design. Not what you can build from. It's not even the complete design development, but it's what sets this project really in place and allows you now to do a true estimate, not based on concepts, not based on square footage numbers from other facilities, but this specific facility doing a takeoff. So this is followed. Once we get done with this schematic design, we review it and we're satisfied with it. Now we go through a budget and cost reconciliation process. So what does that involve? We give the schematic design documents to our design builder for their detailed cost estimate. And this is the first detailed estimate based on an actual design. We also have a peer cost estimate being done just to make sure that there are no big discrepancies, different ways of viewing the same item. Once we get the estimate back, we then do a detailed review of, okay, we take the estimate, we take the plans. Does the estimate reflect what is actually in the plans? Are there disconnects? Are there misunderstandings about what's shown in the plans versus what's being estimated? We make sure that is all aligned. And we get to a point where we say, okay, that looks like an accurate cost estimate for the plans. Now, at that point in time, as is typically the case, your cost estimate may be higher than your budget. And in this case, there were some issues, some challenges with the cost estimate, which is normally the case, where it's somewhat higher than the budget. So now we go through the process of saying, okay, where is it higher and what can we do about it without in any way, shape, or form having an impact on quality? So these are a series of exercises, team exercises, where we take a look at the estimate, we take a look at the budget, we take a look at what's in the plans and say, what can we do about it? Can we bring this back within budget? And the answer is, to make a long story short, we were able to accomplish that. So we were able to reconcile the estimate. We were able to get back right within budget, literally within $700,000 on an $890 million budget. You know, we still have some things that we're looking at. Now, this could continue to vary as design goes forward, but at this point in time, we are on budget with our estimate. One of the questions that I get.
Jeff, and I appreciate, we met Friday, and I cautioned you then, so I'm going to caution you now. Be careful with budget,
I am,
because there are members of this council, like I explained, that heard a lot of numbers in 17, 18, 20, 22, and now we're hearing different numbers now, obviously. So
let me clarify
use,
that.
use the words, present, what they presented you as a budget.
Let me, good point. Here's what I'm telling you, is that when I came here in February, based on what we now have in Garfield Heights, the program, as it has evolved, I told you that we had a budget of $890 million. That's the budget I'm talking about. It's the budget we set once we knew we were in Garfield Heights, once we had the go-ahead to proceed with this site, with this time frame. That's the budget, and it's the budget that I announced back in February when I was last before you in the committee.
thank
That's
you.
the budget.
Thank you.
And what I'm saying is, we've now gone through schematic design, and we've reconciled the project with that budget. This doesn't go back a few years ago when it was once $750, or even 8 years ago. This is the budget that we have been working with now since we got to this site and this time frame. One of the questions that I do want to be clear on, because the question you may have is, when you say value engineering, well, to make sure that your estimate was back in budget, what kinds of things did you do? Did you remove scope? Did you take out things that we want? Did you reduce quality? The answer is no. This exercise, which is really a cost management exercise, is about taking a look at things that we can do as a design team and as a construction team to get back into budget without sacrificing quality and without impacting the program. Let me give you examples of things that occurred, just to put a point on this. So, for example, once we had the drawings and we got more definitions and we were able to explain the design team aspects of the drawings, Gilbane was able to lower its allowance for building systems because questions were answered about the intention of these drawings. The structural team was able to reduce the foundations based on soil analysis and reduce the steel tonnage with more efficient layouts and lowering floor-to-floor dimensions once we went through and reconciled the drawings and had explanations of them. The mechanical and electrical teams were able to refine their designs with the footprint now being set and clarified in this process. These are all things we were able to do. The site civil engineers, when the numbers were a little higher, they found more creative ways to handle stormwater through the use of bioswales. These are things that the public, I mean, frankly, you would never know the difference between with these modifications. They're all beneficial. None of them impact the quality of the project. None of them impact the scope of the project. So, I will also point out that after we, and once again on this slide, after going through this process, doing the value engineering, get back into budget, we started the next part of this process. This is known as Design Assist. There are a lot of contracts that we will retain contractors with special expertise. For example, mechanical and electrical. We're going to want them to come in and they're going to build, but we actually want them to participate in the late design process because they have ideas and they have concepts that may be beneficial. This is known as Design Assist. It's still a competitive process. They look at early drawings. They give us, they compete on the basis of their qualifications to come in with their own engineers and suggest modifications or suggest ways to do this efficiently. They give us targets. They agree to meet a target price, which is within our budget. They then, they're selected on a competitive basis. They are there during the design process, and their engineers participate with our design team. Our design team still stamps the drawings ultimately, or the design team from the design builder. But what happens is, if they are successful ultimately in hitting the target, the project is theirs, they keep it, and of course, we're within budget because they gave us a competitive target price. If they can't hit the target, what then happens is all of their effort, that intellectual property is owned by us, and we have the choice if we want to put that out for competitive bid. And that's known as Target Price Design Assist. It's done early, and we are in the process right now of qualifying, even at this early stage, qualifying design assist contractors based on qualifications to narrow the list of who may be available to operate in that capacity. On modern contemporary projects like this, something like 40% of your project is subcontracted on a design assist basis. So we're doing that. And then in terms of activities on the site, if you went on the site, it's not done yet, but you'd actually see the fence being erected. So the first site activity is actually happening out there to secure the site. So once again, building metrics, what are we building? I showed you a version of this last time. This is confirmation. The square footage is slightly different, but very close to what you saw in terms of the main campus building and the professional development center, which is, once again, that Aldi's building reconfigured. The housing, exactly the same as we told you last time. Nothing has changed. That the rated capacity, the number of beds is the same. The classifications are the same. That chart on the right is exactly the same. That is, in fact, what we are building. Those are the housing units that are that are part of the design right now. That has not changed. And of course, once again, the core facilities do support potential expansion up to 2,400. That's part of the original program. And of course, there's the Sheriff's Administration and then the Professional Development Center, all part of the program. Questions have come up. Councilman Gallagher posed questions to us about what's going on with operational analysis. What is happening is this, because, you know, we're working on the project, but ultimately, what's it going to take in terms of corrections officers? How's that going to change? What programs are going to be supported? There was initial analysis that was done a long time ago, basic analysis about how operations change in a jail like this, primarily because services are now at the housing units. You're not transporting people through. And some of you may remember that initial work that was done. I know that Councilman Gallagher remembers that. Well, that's old analysis. That all has to be redone now to look at what this jail actually is. So an entity which is well qualified called Practical Solutions for Public Safety. There's a woman named Karen Albert. She had already been retained by the Sheriff's Office to perform operational analysis of the current jail. Right now, there's an amendment for her contract to be extended to now redo and look at the operational analysis of the current jail or of the proposed jail right now to update it with the programs which are there. Our understanding is that should be ready in a couple of months, and at that point in time, we would think that the Sheriff's Department and Practical Solutions would come to you with detailed analysis of how the operational issues look. Keep in mind that what we are doing right now is we're creating the spaces where programs can take place. But it's going to be, you know, ultimately up to the Sheriff's Department, up to this review to actually talk about what programs are actually taking place in those spaces, you know, a few years from now. There's ideas and plans and thoughts about it. The spaces will be there. But this analysis has to take place to really show, to update the operational analysis of what occurs in that jail.
And Jeff,
yes.
is it normal to be building a building not knowing the use of the space?
I think the use of the space is known. This is, I mean, the use of the space.
The problem is we don't know.
Pardon?
We don't know. And we've asked the questions and we haven't gotten sufficient answers. So if you're going to build a space for a program A, then I would imagine you would have the necessary space, you would bake that in, we would understand the cost of that. We would understand the programming of that. And it seems to me, and I don't know if the court's here, but they're very important when it comes to programming. And they keep telling us that they're being left out in the cold, that programming's being proposed or promised in spaces in a new facility without either their input, their knowledge, or our input and our knowledge. Not that we have input, we build the thing. But I just don't know how we build a building with proposed programming, which is where we're at right now.
Yeah, I would respond as follows, and it's not, I mean, keep in mind how this all takes place. First of all the programs and everything that occurs in the existing jail has to take place in the new jail. I mean, everything that must occur in a jail is all programmed in the new jail. When this space was programmed, there were exhaustive meetings, and actually repeatedly, with the sheriff's department, with administration, repeated meetings to talk through the spaces that would be needed, you know, what the intention was. So this programming exercise was done exhaustively on multiple occasions. I think there have been 6 sheriffs, or I think 6 sheriffs since we started this. You know, and it is redone, it is re-examined. So all that is known, all that is understood in terms of what the essential programming is going to be in the jail, what happens there every day. There are a few concepts that are, you know, that I know there has been some discussion about, some potential new things that will occur there that have been discussed. And there are, and what we have to provide are simply the spaces and, you know, where this can take place. And those spaces exist in the building.
Okay.
What specifically is done in those spaces and how those programs may change in a couple years, the building will have the flexibility for that. There's nothing dramatic in this building. I mean, there's no huge meeting rooms. This is the same type of reasonable customary space that a modern jail has to accommodate normal and customary programming.
Right.
I don't know if
Probably not a fair.
you want to have any further comment on that.
Probably not a fair question to you. It's for the administration, and I apologize for interrupting you. So why don't you
Okay.
get through that, and we'll deal with the administration on that. My concern was there were spaces in there, large spaces in there, with programming in there, proposed programming, that were outside the legislation this council passed to bookend the dollars for jail, sheriff's administration. I'm being told those are gone, and that's fine. But, you know, there's.
I know a few of the things you were concerned about are gone, but I mean, when I'm done, I would like you to have, Laurel is better at addressing these questions than I am, because she has.
Right.
She has her
Again, it
finger
was
on that
it was
pulse. I
not
don't.
fair to ask you that question, so.
It's fair to ask. It's just fair for me to tell you I'm not the best person to answer. So we'll have Laurel answer those. Okay. Once again now, where are we at in schematic design? So once again, this is a layout of the building. This does not vary in any significant way from what you saw in February. And there's a few things here that are not, that have actually changed in the last few weeks. But once again, just to orient everybody, looking from the bottom of the depiction, which is what's, you know, closest to I-480 up to the top. Once again, you know, you start with your visitor parking. You can see, and that's 13. You can see where RTA comes in at 9. You can see where the lobby area is. That's number 2. It comes into a interior courtyard. You can see that on the right is where the Sheriff's Administration building is. You can see that on the left that's where the release program is. That's as people exit the jail. Directly behind that, though, now you're getting into the jail, the housing units, the BCC, the Behavioral Care Center, and I'm actually going to show you a little rendering or depiction of what that kind of looks like. And then the main housing units, the bulk of the jail on 3 levels. which is where number 4 is. You can see the Sally Port to the right, number 7. That number 12 is actually not quite accurate. That is the covered parking. This is not structured parking. It's covered parking with the PV on top of it, solar on top of it. It is not that large an area at this point in time. That probably shows an area for about 540 cars. That's actually now about 200 cars that will be undercover, with the rest of that being surface parking. You can see the surface parking there, and at 11. One question that was asked about this, and I will point out right now, all parking on this site will be free. Whether it's staff parking, whether it is visitor parking, there's ample parking. People can come there, they can park. There's no intention to charge for any parking on this program. Once again, as you continue on, you can see the loading dock. You can see where the central utilities plant is at 5. Number 6 is the designated area for grass underfoot. That's still under development of what that could be. Up at the top, number 14, that is the PDC. That's the Professional Development Center. And this is not new programming. What this is there were things that would have happened in the Sheriff's Administration building. It's more efficient and cost-effective to put them in the PDC at 14 because there's already building structure there. And the activities are actually more aligned with putting them in a separate place up there than keeping them in Sheriff's Administration. It's more efficient, and it's less expensive to build, and it's a great use of that building.
Am I allowed to interrupt and ask what kind of activities, or do you want me to wait?
Well, no, it will be, there'll be various activities. There are training activities that will be up there, meeting activities, training activities. We have representatives here that can talk a little bit more about what is planned in that building.
Okay, I just wanted to.
But it's fundamentally things like training, which will go on there. There's different kinds of exercises. The other idea there is you might have situations where you're doing things jointly with other police forces and departments. They can come there, they can park there, they can enter there. They don't have to go through the main administration or the main entrance of the jail itself. It can work at different hours, and it doesn't, and the construction cost is less. There's also some pretty cool, as I understand it, some pretty cool virtual equipment there where you train now in ways that are, pretty interesting compared to what traditionally is done. There is a hatched area that you can see to the west of 14. I know this is an interest of yours, Councilman Gallagher. That would represent that hatch area if there was a decision at some point in time to do an indoor firing range. That's where it could be located. That would be the approximate size of the dimensions of the type of 12-lane range that folks have talked about. And then another thing that is shown here, it's not in existence right now, but if there was, you see in red, if one was to do a loop, which would simply be a proposed trail for walking. That's where it would be. That would be far outside of any secured areas. Anybody could walk there, whether it's a staff member who wants to get out or anybody else, you could go there. That's not part of the current plan. It's not part of the current budget, but it's a potential of having a walking trail in the area in red, just shown on the plan in case that's of interest. Now, this is where I try to give you a little information about design. So what was the process in schematic design? Because what we have talked about so far is functional design. We talked about function, but we've never really talked about design concepts or aesthetic design. So what happened during this stage is while we're designing the building, we're also talking about the aesthetics of the building. We're talking about what things we want to do in the building and why we want to do them. So you start out, as most architects do, we were presented with palettes that showed us design influences in Cuyahoga County. And there you see some familiar images, depicting things like water, depicting things like forest, depicting some of our architectural stuff. That's as soft and fuzzy as I'm going to get on this, okay? Ultimately, though, what our design team came up with are three basic concepts, three themes to be used in the building. The water theme, which is also about connectivity in Cleveland, lakes, rivers. The forest theme, sense of place, we're the forest city. And a movement theme and a meadow theme. The meadow and, movement, the wind through the meadow. The idea is a jail, there's a lot of cold elements in a jail, hardened steel, concrete. The idea is to come up with design concepts which make the environment less harsh, which soften the environment, which make it more livable and inviting, both for those who are inmates there and for the people who have to work there every day, to have a calming influence in the environment, which is all very important. So these were the themes that were used to express those concepts. And so what then occurred is, with respect to each theme, a palette was developed. The palette included, and you can see here, this is for the water theme, the paint colors that would be used, the types of materials that would be used for ceilings, for walls, for millwork, for flooring, and for furnishings. And you can see the palette there for the water theme. You can see the palette for the forest theme. And I won't go through these in any detail. You can read these. You can see the palette for the meadow theme or the movement theme. Now, how does this translate in the jail? So now you see this is a section of the jail. This is not the Sheriff's Administration. This is the actual sections. And you can see how this theming is being done. The water theme on the lower level, the forest theme on the second level, the meadow theme on the third level. Once again, important for the calming influence in the jail, for the environment that you want to establish, bringing the outside in. It's also important for the people that work there. And also, frankly, when they're on the floor, they know where they are. They look at the theming, this is forest, I'm on the second floor. So there's a little bit of direction that's given by the theming. Now, how does this translate into these housing units? So at our last meeting, I showed you conceptually the concept of a housing unit. And I'll take this one example from the last time. So this is a housing unit, which is a single cell, 48-bed unit. This is a general population unit on the first floor. Now, the final design is close to this. It's not exactly the same, but keep in mind the concepts here. You had single cells in a ring. Well, you have them on the, basically, if you're taking a look at this diagram, on the top and on the bottom. You have the mezzanine level, the second level, which is on the right, lower right. That's the second level. They're connected by stairways. You're looking out at the rec yard to the left. So that's light comes in there, and it's free access into the rec yard by the individuals in the housing unit. They go into the rec yard. You see where the furnishings are in the common area in the middle, and then the all-important specialty rooms on the right. This is where you have your secure vestibule to come in, where you have your medical exam and room where medicines are passed out, where examinations take place. At the top, that's one specialty room. You have the non-contact visitation rooms where the inmates are secured on the inside, where those interviewing them, whether lawyers, meeting with them, family, whatever, are on the outside, so you can have this non-contact visitation. And of course, the multi-purpose room, whatever programming, and I know you want to talk about that programming, but whatever programming is brought to the individual housing unit can take place, or whatever meetings take place in that multi-purpose room. The whole point, as you recall, is in the current jail, none of that happens at the housing unit. Every time someone goes to recreation, they have to be escorted, very inefficient, not really that safe. This whole concept is to bring people to the housing unit. My whole purpose of showing you this is the concept from a plan or a diagram. Now I'm going to show you a rendering of how this is translated. So what you are now seeing is that same space. Now, this is once again on the lower level. So this is your water theme. You're now at the security desk. You're looking out toward the rec area and that lighted area and back. Those specialty rooms are behind you, so you're not seeing those specialty rooms because you're looking out from the security desk. There is a mural behind you up above those rooms. The lower right is that themed mural that you can see there. That would be what's on the wall. And now you can see, and that, by the way, that's not just a mural, that's acoustical. So that's, there's soundproofing done by those elements. You can see how the accent painted on the stairs, the railings, you can see the painted wood tone on all the cell doors. You can see the contrasting accent paints at the door frames. You can see the TVs mounted on those catwalks, and you can see the furniture and fixtures, and you get an idea of how what I just showed you is now translated. If I turn to the next depiction, you're now on the second level. So this is on the second level. This is now using the forest theme, and once again, you can see the murals, which are acoustical panels. So they're not just murals. They also serve a function for sound softening and deadening in the room. You get a feel, once again, for the accents, for the ceiling, the floors, what the furnishings will look like. The painted wood tone, it will be on the doors. You can't really see that very well because they're inside of this. Looking straight ahead, well, actually, you can see in the one area, there's a secure area of glass on the right. There's doors behind it on the right. And then straight ahead on the left is, once again, the rec area. If I go to, make sure I'm, the next one is the BCC. So this is the Behavioral Care Center. And, you know, once again, programmatically, this was in all the way back to DLR. There was always going to be a BCC, this kind of unit in the jail. It was one of the most important things to consider for medical care, for health care. This is how it is now. You know, this is a look from a design point of view. Once again, on the second floor, it's the forest theme. Here you can see the fluted acoustical tile above the cell entries. You see the color pattern. You see how the furnishings look, floor, ceiling, and rec area in the glass on the opposite end. The final rendering here that I'm going to share with you, and we can obviously give you a lot more of this. This is now on the third floor. So this is now your meadow movement theme. Once again, you have, and this would be a 4-bed dorm general population unit, not single cell, but 4-bed in the dorm. So this would be areas where you don't have the same heightened security concern. You can use a dormitory style, which is what's off in the rooms that would be to the left. But here you can see, once again, the theming, the mural on the right, which is acoustical, the ceiling, the floor, the types of furnishings. You're at the security desk, so your specialty rooms are behind you. And then you have your recreation area straight ahead. Once again, I'm just giving you this to show you where we are in the design phase. Everything I'm showing you, by the way, is within budget. This is not aspirational. These finishes, doing things in this fashion, are all right now within the estimate and within the budget. So, translating that, and we provided a little more detail to Councilman Gallagher, and I can do it with you, not in this meeting. We don't want to get into too much detail on where we are on costs, because keep in mind that we're still bidding out portions of the project, and we want to see objectively what bidders say without, giving them information as to how we are looking at these costs what contingencies we have. So this is more general. But the bottom line numbers are these. This is the reconciled project budget. This is not aspirational. This is not parametric. This is actually based on a takeoff of the schematic design, the specific schematic design that we have right now. The overall budget right now, all in, stands at $890,266. The portion of this that would ultimately be the design builder's costs would be about $758. That's roughly what the GMP would be if this holds. And then all of the costs that would not be in the GMP, but the county holds in different ways, such as furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the architect, design fees that are not included in the GMP, insurance, other consultants, et cetera. Contingency, that's all below the line. That would be the 131, but the total is 890. So we are holding to the budget that we established that I've told you about.
Presented budget, but not including the cost of property.
Not including property, that's true. Not including the cost of property. Next steps. So what happens right now, because we have gone through schematic design, because we've reconciled it, we release the architect to proceed. They already have started into the design development phase. I'm not going to, you can look at my list of everything that happens in design development on the right there. There's a whole series of workshops, but this is now getting to the next level and the final level of concept design. Think about it this way. When we got through schematic design, the building is all laid out, all the spaces are laid out, fundamental assumptions about every space is laid out. Now we are putting much more detail. We are, for every aspect of this building, we are going to show in design development much more precise design. What exactly are going to be the materials? What exactly are the refinements? What are the door types? What are the hardware types? What are the building systems that will be used and ultimately specified? All the detail. Basically, every design detail that goes into this project will be there by the end of design development. It is still not the working drawings. What happens is when that is done, all of that information is then converted into drawings that a builder can build off of. The information that you need to build, precise specifications, tolerances and details. But this would be the end of the design phase, and when the design development is done, that is actually the package that the builder will then use to establish its guaranteed maximum price. So this is what we're going through now. It's a very extensive effort. A lot more detail in all the design detail. That will be completed. It'll be what we do from now until October. When that process is done in October, we then, that is then turned over. It's part of the final guaranteed maximum price package that the design builder works on and gives the final guaranteed maximum price proposal back in December. So if you look at the next chart, this is the current project schedule. And what you can see are the key milestone dates. You can see that we're done with schematic design. You can see we are now going to be working through design development, getting to the guaranteed maximum price proposal in December, getting that reconciled in January, and being in a position, hopefully in February, where we have the reconciled GMP, where all your work has been done to issue bonds, and you have a financial closing and final GMP amendment all approved at the tail end of February. And some construction, of course, will already have gone into place, but this is what is then released to finish the project. So that is the presentation that I have right now, and I welcome any questions.
Questions for Mr. Applebaum?
Chair, some of those pictures in there, I don't know if you're the right person to ask on this or not. It showed chairs, furniture that looked like they could be lifted up. Is there going to be loose furniture in these rooms?
Ellis, do you want to talk a little bit about the furnishings, the FF&E?
Hi, this is Ellis Katz. I'm with Project Management Consultants. All that is detention-grade furniture, and it's mostly bolted down, so they really can't use it as an object to cause damage.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, is there a jail out there that we aspired to be, that we based a lot of what we do here on that jail? I've heard different jails mentioned.
There were several jails that people looked at and toured. You know, I mean, Franklin County is one. Davidson County and Nashville is one. People went to Indianapolis. People have looking at depictions from San Mateo. So there were a whole series of jails, Wayne County, a whole series of jails that people looked at. I don't think it's fair to say there's any one jail where people said we want that, but there were aspects, best practices in all these jails. And I will also tell you, every one of these jail projects, if you go and you talk to the administrators or the sheriffs, in retrospect, they said, we love our project, but there's things we would have done differently. This is the feedback that our folks have received. This is the feedback our architects and engineers have received. So the answer is they've looked at multiple projects for best practices. We're trying to take the best of the best and also trying to learn from their recent experiences, because every one of them, once they got to operating, they all said, you know what, there's things that in retrospect, we made decisions we would have now, had we known X, Y, or Z, we would have done them differently.
Is there something we could look to as far as best practices, as far as space allocations? Because if there isn't, how is it best practices?
Well, there's all sorts of things which have been written out there. There's organizations that put their best practices out. I'm not sure if I can't think of any one thing you could look at because there's no agreement, as to what the ultimate best practice is. But you know what?
So best practices really doesn't mean best
Well,
practices.
it's the collection of wisdom by all these experts.
Where is that library of wisdom that I can go to?
Let me get back to you and let me figure out a better answer than one I have right now.
You knew this was coming.
I didn't know that one was coming, but I will, let me think about that with our experts, because I will ask them how they would answer the question.
Well, and I know, I realize, since I've been on this, unfortunately, far too long, what was initially discussed back in 18, 19 to today has changed somewhat dramatically.
COVID changed a lot of things.
Yeah, and so I understand there's change, but if there, I just thought, are we looking at something? Because I know Davidson County was mentioned, and I'm like, oh, can I go to Davidson County to compare what their space usage is to our space usage or proposed space usage?
I mean, I'll give you examples. Like, for example, for the BCC, Davidson County was viewed as a best practice or a model for aspects of the BCC. That would be a fair statement. Each one of these facilities, when you talk to the folks in the field, and there are a whole series of experts, detention experts. You saw a bunch of them that we had. You'll remember them: Curtis Pulitzer, Karen Chin. These were all the experts in the field. They all had a whole series, a list of things to read. I mean, we have a huge bibliography. And by the way, you're not going to read all this stuff. I know that. But we have the bibliography of this, but we've gone to the experts and asked them to synthesize it. We've looked at facilities. We've had people talk about what's best in these facilities. So, is there a magic guidebook? I don't think so. Is there a ton of information that is reference material that our experts look at? The answer is yes. Do you have a better answer?
Well, just the other, Nicole English with Public Works. I mean, the other thing is, depending on where we went, the state has different standards, right? So we are subject to some of the state standards, where in other states you're allowed to, they build cells in different manners than we do. So we do have to use the state standards in order to do.
I'm aware of that. We redid
Right.
our.
So
out in Strongsville, and I know it's very.
in the jail,
very
that's pretty
hard.
much what's driving the train between the consultants' best practice, what they've seen around as far as, rec space. You have to have certain amount of rec space. We are building bigger rec spaces where we can in certain areas because we think that's the better practice. Office standards, the county does have office standards that we abide by, that we built this building based on. That's what we've looked at, other buildings that we've expanded when we did Harvard, when we did 1801. We have county space standards that we use that were based on best practices based on architects, what they've seen around and for office spaces. So,
Those we just heard, best practices really is.
well.
Wait, it
Jeff
comes down
says that,
really
but-
to want and need?
Sure, there's definitely wants and needs, and then the way you kind of put them all together is looking at what are the standards that we have around, what have other people used, what is the architects recommending and seeing across the country being built or in our state.
Because, and I'll give you an example of where I'm going with this, is when we built this building.
Mm-hmm.
And having been an employee at Cuyahoga County in the state of Ohio for almost 30 years, people seem to forget that we're in this facility more than when we're with our families, other than our bedtime. So it's important to me that the employees have what they need, not necessarily what they want, but what they need. So when we designed this, and I remember going to Executive Fitzgerald, where we implemented getting floor captains to pick out color palettes, to pick out styles of desks, chairs, as much window space as we could get. And that went a long way with the comfort level of our employees who, again, are here 8 hours, 9 hours a day.
And to tell you, to be honest, we have a bigger cubicle size in our space standards right now than actually the architect was pushing for. They've saying, based on what's happening in the industry now, people are actually needing smaller sizes, and we said, no, we pushed back because this is the county standard we've been using, and we feel that our employees, we are here in person, they're not really remote, especially the people who are doing certain jobs in the sheriff's admin, and so we pushed for bigger cubicles that we believe is the standard that we should have, so
And
we have
we'll
done
get
that.
into that when you start showing us all that. But I just wanted to, when I keep hearing, standards and, best practices, it becomes confusing when you realize that, the library of best standards doesn't exist.
Yeah, you just have to start somewhere, though. I mean, if we had everything willy-nilly,
Understood. And we started with a clean palette here and then built this. And things were done wrong, clearly. But I think we did the best that we could with what we had and the needs that we had, not necessarily the wants.
I want to distinguish, though, between two things, because you've said best practices, best standards, so,
I mixed.
yeah, but let me just be clear. There are minimum standards. Everything that Nicole talks about, of course, we have the state standards, we have building codes, so they're minimum standards. They're things we have to do. Best practices, is not, is not necessarily a minimum standard. It can be a lot more than a minimum standard. So standards we completely understand. Standards are built into everything we have done. Best practice, what else might you want to do? Or where do you have discretion? That's a little bit less certain.
Right,
That's-
and I know with the cell sizes and what has to be put in the jail
Yeah.
is pretty much run by the state of Ohio. So I get that part
Okay.
I get. Questions? Yes, sir.
Through the chair, I had a couple of questions, actually, if I may. The first one is going to be a little bit of a 10,000-foot perspective. Historically speaking, did this site present any challenges in terms of scale? So I've been to the site, I've walked the site. That western slope where that water basin is that borders Valley View there, I know that there's significant drop off in that part of the property. Did that pose any real challenges in terms of how we design and how we built?
The bottom line is, obviously, that you wouldn't consider that to be, constructible without heroic measures. So it meant that you had to have enough area on the rest of that site to be able to build everything you needed without unreasonable constraint. Now, that area can still be valuable, as we talked about, for runoff and for other purposes. Frankly, you couldn't have really bought the site without that area. But the answer is, and also it's a buffer, it's good for buffering. But the restriction was, we had to have enough area on the rest of the site to have the flexibility to build what we needed to build. We couldn't rely on that area for base building construction.
Thank you. And then the other component there, looking at this, the satellite image, you've got the Kennecott building there off of 96th, and then you've got that other on the corner of Transportation and Granger that's kind of a plaza that has multiple businesses in it. And then I'm also seeing this other site. This is on, these don't have page numbers, but the site design updates page. There's that other parcel that seems to be grayed out, but it has the red lines around it. Is that something that we would want to acquire? Could we scale and acquire it in the future?
Are you talking about the area that is south of Granger Road?
Correct.
Well, that is actually, that has been acquired. Wait, which side is he talking about? Maybe I'm not.
The part that the developer.
Oh, that part. Oh, no, okay, this part over here. The part next to adjacent to transportation.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about up above. Right now, that's the developer's property. Whether or not, there could be a future acquisition, whether there's a purpose to do it, that I think would be open to conversation. But that's not part of what we acquired or part of any current plan that we have.
Thank you. And then my last question, which might be a little bit more cumbersome to answer, but obviously I'm new to this council. So in the process of design and, understanding priorities, was there an identification of redundancies in terms of what we wanted to have in the building versus what we already offer throughout the county? So I'll give an example, thinking about reentry and some of the services that we have and some of the sites that we have throughout the county, but then also having those services within the jail itself. Was there a consideration given to those redundancies?
I actually think, Laurel, you would be better to answer this question than me, since you have more knowledge about what else there is.
Good afternoon, Council. Laurel Domansky Diaz, Justice and Health Equity Officer for the county. I'm glad you asked that question about reentry because that is a really important piece of the work that we're doing. Traditionally, reentry has been a program that's been offered at the prison, in the prison system, and not really, the jail population has really been left out of that conversation. But when we look at the numbers of people that are cycling in and out of our jail on somewhat of a regular basis, and I think I've talked about this before in this group, that there's about 300 people that have cycled in and out of our jail eight or more times in the past couple of years. So when you look at those types of situations and those types of folks, we have to start to think about how do we get people out of these systems and how do we assist them in re-entering into a society that's prepared, that they're prepared for, rather. The Reentry Center and Reentry and Resource Center is modeled after something that Franklin County is doing. So it is we don't fully have all of the partners outlined of who are going to be involved in it, but we know the Office of Reentry will definitely be involved, that basic needs will be met for people. So if they need to charge their phone, if they need transportation, if they need to, they don't have a housing situation that they can go to. And then we want to think about too, like, again, those rehabilitative and long-term strategies around vocational training and those types of things.
Mr. President, to Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Applebaum, I basically have three questions, but some might require a follow-up or two. And the first one is that there was a discussion of various facilities like community center, reentry facilities, food pantry, things like that, and I would like if I could get a rundown as to which of these things are in and which of these things are out, and if there's any of these things where there's still a decision to be made.
Well, there's no food pantry, if that's one on your checklist.
You said no.
There is not a food pantry.
Right, okay.
Actually, you know what, Laurel? I'm gonna pull you up here again because if I say that there's not something and you say it is, I don't want to.
No, there is, I think the original model that we were looking at was what the food bank had done with their resource center on Waterloo. And we realized that we just didn't have the, I guess, capacity to do something like that. So whether somebody might leave with a backpack full of non-perishable food, that's something that we want to still consider. In fact, right now, there is a program through the Public Defender's Office that Associate Warden O'Donnell is managing inside, where people do get a backpack of hygiene products, sweatshirts. O'Donnell, you could probably tell me more what's in that, or talk more about what's in that backpack. But the idea is that so as people leave that are really indigent, they have a little bit of a, a hand as they walk away. So like I said to Councilman Schlepper, the programs that we're looking at are having an Office of Reentry presence there so that they can help connect people with basic resources and potentially more kind of comprehensive resources around like vocational training or education type services that will also occur inside of the jail. But that there's that connection between folks as they're coming into the jail and the services that they might need as they go out into the community, that we're making sure that they are connected, and that we do kind of what we call in healthcare like a warm handoff or a hot handoff to a program or service.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just make sure, are there any other items on your list that other than the food pantry you mentioned?
You basically covered the other items.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. But the answer is, what's in this jail is in one form or another, the better expression of services that should have been or were being performed at the old jail.
Okay. The second question I have is the answers to the written materials said that we applied for some things but didn't get any state or federal funding. And I know that the state of Ohio had a $50 million pot for jail construction or improvement.
Yes.
And my question is, why couldn't we get any of that money?
I was not involved in that application process. I do know from some other projects I was working on that we understood that the decision was that those, it's only $50 million for the entire state, that those dollars, the expression of those dollars was for smaller communities, smaller jails, smaller communities, and not intended for large urban projects. But I don't know if we have more, if anyone wants to make a more specific statement. That's my understanding, though.
I thought we were
But
told
I
that
wasn't
we
directly
didn't
involved
qualify.
in that process.
So it's just another example of Cleveland doesn't do very well down in Columbus.
Maybe. I don't think Lake County did very well on that either, though, by the way, if that's any comfort.
Okay, so my final question has to do with jail size. The current jail population is less than the planned capacity by more than 400, and that's at a time of year that seasonably is typically fairly close to the high water mark for the year. And we also have made progress with the city of Cleveland on some process improvements that, if implemented, could reduce our population of Cleveland prisoners. My question is, suppose the jail population went down a couple hundred more and stabilized where even with the normal fluctuations that take place, that it became clear after the jail was built that we had 300 or 400 cells that we didn't need and weren't gonna need. My question is, to what extent would it be easy, difficult, or impossible, or ridiculously expensive to repurpose a portion of the jail for some other kind of program?
That's a great question, and let me answer it in a few different ways. And let's just take the hypothetical that, and frankly, it would be a good thing if the jail population did in fact go down, even if at that point in time we had housing units that were not fully occupied. So you'd have three things. You know, once the housing unit is built out and, you know, you have your cells and you have everything that you saw, you know, repurposing that would be probably fairly impractical. But I would say the following. One of the things that is desirable when you do maintenance, when you do any rework or maintenance in a jail, the most effective and efficient way to do that is, if you have a housing unit, is to basically vacate that housing unit, put everybody in that housing unit someplace else, do all the rework you're going to do quickly and efficiently with nobody in that housing unit, and then bring them back. So to be blunt about it, if you actually did have some vacated or empty housing units, it actually helps in terms of your long-term maintenance plan. Now, we haven't planned for vacated housing units, but that's actually a hidden advantage, because when we do long-term maintenance, we do have to vacate those units and find places for those individuals to be. Second thing I would say is, if you did mothball, if you did, find out you didn't need one of the units and you mothballed it, while you would have had the construction cost, at that point in time, you can save the operating cost. You don't have to have the corrections officers there. You wouldn't have to have the same maintenance utility costs in that area, so you would find some savings by mothballing that. Now, there's a third discussion, and I'm not going to be anywhere, this is not my conversation to have, but in some jails, in some county and other jails, they have found that when over time they did have space available, they were able to figure out that it would be beneficial for other smaller municipalities and communities, let's say in the county, not to have to continue to build and maintain their own jails and holding cells. And I know there's been some negative experience in the past. It wasn't done well in the past, and we don't have to revisit that history. But there's no reason why that conversation couldn't take place about whether that could be done well. But once again, that's above my pay grade, so I'm not going to get into that issue.
So,
But in terms of actually doing something else once you build out the housing unit, that's probably not a very practical thing to do with the unit.
okay, just two comments about that. Number one is that I'm not concerned about having one or even two 48-unit pods more than are necessary. The flexibility would be useful. My concern is about having 300 or 400 additional spaces and providing encouragement to find some way to fill them when we don't really need them. And the second comment is that I am just really leery about this idea of our providing jail facilities for other jurisdictions when we don't need to, because it just creates more opportunities for liabilities, more opportunities for lawsuits, more opportunities for problems of all different kinds, and for us to take on more of these kind of things than we're required to do to perform the core mission. I'm just
I want to point
very,
out.
very,
I want to point out, that last
very-
comment was my comment. That was my personal comment. That's not coming from the administration or anybody else. So that's just a comment from me and, you know, as to what other communities have done. I'm not suggesting that's what you should do.
You're being kind and diplomatic, but I'll just say that you're not the only place where I heard that from. I heard that from other places that create greater even concern.
Okay,
I'll just leave it at that.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And lost in the shuffle is the, I believe, 500 guys we have on ankle bracelets. I believe it's 500, 400, 150, 600? What's that, 600?
Aaron Reese, Chief Deputy for the County Sheriff's Department. I think our population today is about 609.
Okay. And again, you know, that tells me in that community, you know, you're a Bud Light away from, you know, needing 400 cells, you know, at a festival if they all go to the same festival. So depending on their restrictions. So we got to keep that in mind. That's always forgotten, and we got to keep that in mind. And I'm sure you've figured that out. But thank you. And Jeff, thank you for your comment. Keep them to yourself. Sunny.
Thank you. I have to say, I think the size of the bed is correct because crime goes in cycles. You know, we might be on a downswing. Certainly, we don't want to be in a position in the future where we don't have enough space and it's easy to mothball, I think. I think that's fair. In terms of opening this up to other communities, that was going to be one of the comments I made. I disagree with the president altogether. We moved this facility to Garfield away from the places that need them the most. So we might as well try to accommodate the entering suburbs, other areas with misdemeanants, to have a space for them to go. I would like a separate section. I think hopefully we're doing that with this jail plan for lower level crimes. Is that something that's contemplated?
I'm sorry, repeat the.
A lower level misdemeanor detainees, are we going to have a separate spot for them instead of putting them in with a general population
I mean-
of hardened felons?
Well, there's classifications, you know, but I mean, there's, let me have some.
Why don't we do different color schemes for that?
I have not heard that.
Well, we should start looking at that.
There are different classifications in every housing unit. I would say that the misdemeanants that are going to be in there 1 to 7 days will likely land in the intake housing space, which is on the first floor.
Yeah, but that's not
So they'll be
by-
in and out.
But that's simply by the classification. It's not by whether they're, you know, like from the city of Cleveland or anything like that.
No,
Right, it's-
those are two separate issues. One, but however, if we do have accommodating different communities, usually those are misdemeanants, you know, it's usually those OVIs and
But the
DV.
classifications are based on a lot of different things, including the level of security deemed required.
Phil, would you like to speak to that?
You need to come up here and rescue me on how this is done.
Philip Christopher, Associate Warden. So all the inmates that come into our jail, they're scored. We have an objective scoring tool that we use, and it's based on their past history, their past offenses, their current offenses, past behavioral history within the institution. It's all scored. And that's how we come about having high, maximum level security, medium, and low minimum level security.
If you look at the, I'm sorry, if you look at the chart, you can see the indications of those security levels. And you can see how many for male, how many for female. So it's all in the, when I say classification, it's all done by that classification system. Some of these areas, you know, that's why you would have the difference between a single cell and like a dormitory unit or something like that.
Okay. So I think if the ebb and flow of our intake happens over the next decades, you know, it might be a time to help with communities. The cost of running a suburban jail is outrageous, and I think at this point, if we move to this location, we should really look to helping those communities down the road. Is Cleveland coming with us? I'm assuming they are. Have we established whether Cleveland's going to be joining our Garfield site?
I mean, I understand there's Nicole.
Nicole English, again with Public Works. We are planning for what we have today, so we are including what they
Okay.
have today.
And that's why the number of housing
Correct.
beds are what they are.
Right. And then just back to the housing unit real quick, while we call them all out on that chart, what they are, that's really just in our mind how we came to those numbers. At the end of the day, they're all very flexible. They're pretty much built with similar characteristics. So whether today it's male and tomorrow it needs to be female or vice versa, there's not a huge difference in some of them. So like as we evolve and if we have extra beds at some point, we now want to open it up to lower level, they can be adjusted. I mean, they're different housing units, but besides a word we put on paper, there's not a ton, besides maximum has some specialty that we have in there, but otherwise can be very well, kind of adjusted.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the flexibility is great
Correct.
that we're looking at that. So,
I think your question is more about who's staying with who in the housing unit rather than what the physical build-out of the housing
where you
unit
put
is.
them.
where you put them, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's going to be sections that are accommodating
Right,
different
and
levels.
essentially, we kind of did the floors in a way where intake is on the bottom, so it's near the Sally Port, so if you're coming in and out easily. And then medical is all on sort of the second floor where the medical clinics are, and then you get more towards GP on the top. So, I mean, they're organized in a way that made sense at this time, but could be adjusted. And they're all separate housing units, so there's not people mixing between the two.
Okay.
Yep.
In terms of programming, so I want to understand this picture of this programming room is going to be one space and different programs are going to be run through those? Is that
There's
the idea?
different opportunities. There are some other spaces that are centralized, but the idea here is that at every housing unit, you have this multi-purpose room, and there's different things that can occur in that multi-purpose room. Whether it's educational, whether it's some kind of I've seen a number of possible programs there, but it's simply a functional room where people can gather in a secured way within the housing unit for training, for whatever it is, people want to do there, recreation training, whatever it is. By recreation, I mean looking at, watching things, whatever it is that they have, it's a flexible space. But it's
Okay.
at each housing unit. You don't have to go and take the inmate and walk them to another place. The whatever it is comes right to the housing unit.
Okay. So are we buying equipment for these rooms, such as cooking equipment? And, we're talking about having this kitchen, and is this something that we're looking at buying at this
Well,
point?
those rooms are just fundamental FF&E. I mean, that's tables and chairs, but you could talk about specialty stuff.
Yeah, so right now, we do offer a series of group type programs in Jail 2 in particular, because it already does have the community space between the two housing units. So that's what we're trying to do with this new design, is to allow every housing unit to have that opportunity. So whether it's GED classes, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous or any other addiction type programming, stress management, there are a series of programs that are being offered currently that will become much easier and much more widespread in the new jail. The other thing that, with the technology of having a screen and a camera in these rooms, is that a therapist or a teacher could be in one room and could broadcast it across the entire jail, or, certain housing units or whatever it is. So that would be the only type of equipment. There will be desks and chairs, that type of thing, but nothing like particular to what you're talking about. There is a culinary training kitchen attached to the regular kitchen. And this is modeled after a program that we actually did in the Brooklyn Heights jail that was run by a CO out there. And she's been consulting with us on how to do that type of program inside of our new facility as well. So that would be the only place where we would do something like that.
And how much space would this training kitchen be?
I don't know the square footage.
Well,
off the top
you
of
can
my-
get back to me. I don't need to know now.
It's 1,200 square feet.
Okay. What happened to diversion? I didn't hear anybody talk about diversion did I miss it at the jail?
So from a community perspective, you're talking about the diversion program. So I think the council is aware that there is a new crisis center that's being built in, between the Adams Board and the centers are going to be managing that crisis center. And between the current diversion center, the crisis center, I'm not sure the timeline of all that because that doesn't fall under my purview, but the diversion will continue to happen outside of the jail campus.
Okay, because there was talk about having it there. Couple, maybe environmental questions, this parking lot, are we gonna, I'd like to see us have permeable pavement. We're taking a grass meadow, and I don't want to put concrete more than we have to. So I'm sure nobody's contemplated that, have they?
It's asphalt right now, right? It's an asphalt lot.
It's there now?
No, I said it
No,
was
I mean, on
contemplated as
plans.
an asphalt
Well,
lot.
let's see what it's going to be if we're going to do this, we're taking green space, we're, taking away things. I'd like to have this as, balanced as possible. So I'd like to get a quote on what that would look like, permeable.
We've taken a look at some alternate things there, and I will tell you, it's asphalt as part of getting, the project into budget. Anything beyond that is going to cost. We can look at it as an alternate and see what it
Really?
would cost.
Well, maybe we should look at taking away something else then. So,
We'll give you information as to what that cost would
have
be.
you permeable pavement instead of asphalt? Okay, so I'm just saying over here, I'm not going to be comfortable asphalting over a space that's green and making it worse. We have a bioswale, we might as well keep it all together if we care about
Well,
drainage.
I'll get back to you with better information on what's been looked at.
Get me a scope, and maybe we can take away things we don't need. Favorite topic are we going to need any protective glass on that third level, Jeff? So we need to look at that.
I just want to bet.
What?
I just want to bet as to what questions you would be asking.
Oh, so you're ready?
Yeah, we will.
Although I stumped, were you ready for permeable pavement?
No,
No.
you got me there.
Okay.
You did not get me on the other one, though.
Okay, you know the other one.
And the answer is, we'll take a look at what the actual situation there is.
Okay.
Because, the first step is to figure out what are the conditions that would need to be adjusted. We'll try to get some of the folks that you know about, we'll take a look at that and see if there is a need there.
Oh, thank you. And what about the dogs, our canine dogs? Is that part of that grassy knoll that they'll have access to?
Go back first to the permeable pavement. Just, there's some operational things with doing that also in this climate, right? And just the salt and the plowing. But I will say, because of this west end where we kind of have the grade drop, we can store a good amount of water on our site. We aren't releasing this all and putting it all in sewers. So we'll be looking at stormwater management as a whole. So we'll work and talk to you more about
Okay.
the pavement, but I want you to know that we are looking at a comprehensive look at stormwater management, because we know there's an issue, especially out here in Garfield Heights, and making
Right.
sure we're not just sending
Okay, well, I'll
a ton
talk
of
to you
water out there.
offline with that.
Yeah, so we can work on that. And then as far as the canines, we can show you a little closer up, but we have a whole area for the canines to be on site, and they will also have dog runs that go outdoors, and an outdoor area beyond their run where they have training. And we've worked with Lieutenant Joe Kelly and his team on kind of what the need is for out there. We know they've increased the amount of dogs that are in the jail, and they're looking to add even more. And so we have been planning for that number. And so we can even show you some details on that look pretty cool, and he's pretty happy with
Oh,
what's
good.
coming
Okay,
up.
and lastly, on programming, I want to do some fostering of, dogs so that's something in those rooms that I want to be able to have adoptables in there with the inmates to work with them.
Sure, we can talk.
Okay,
Thank
put
you.
that on the list, please.
I just had a quick question. Councilwoman Simon reminded me, what are our other sustainability efforts with the project? You're mentioning covered parking. It's an opportunity to put solar on the roof and potentially bring down our energy costs.
We do have solar on top of the covered parking. That's part of the current investigation. We did look at we did look at, do you want to talk about geothermal, what was done?
Nicole's getting her steps in today, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we're just looking at energy usage in general, and the solar panels, because the EPA grant is working out, hopefully should work out nicely on being able to put those on site. The other thing we've really talked through, and we've met with a couple different people related to composting and what we do with food waste. And this facility is very similar, they believe, to like how a hospital runs, you know, as far as 3 meals a day and how the waste comes through the kitchen. And they think it's a really prime candidate to be able to compost in a way that is efficient and can make some sense, that turns everything into soil. So we're looking at all sorts of different options, recycling, composting. So we have been meeting and will continue to meet with the sustainability department just in general on kind of goals for the building and where we get. So we'll keep in touch with that.
And we did look at other options early on that we couldn't do. So, I mean, there has been a whole investigation of a lot of different things at the outset. Some things you could do, some things you can't.
Okay, and we went from 500 covered to 200. Who decided that,
200, roughly, the
roughly?
covered parking,
Right
200, yeah.
And then so
Why was that?
Additional solar on site.
I'm worried about the covered. I understand the solar.
Because, you know, in discussing this with the sheriff's administration, that was actually.
Sheriff made that
Yeah,
decision?
we asked what was the real need there.
Yeah. Well, the sheriff also told me he has a need for a firing range. So I'll assume next time we meet, it'll be in here and the cost will be added. I don't want to get into a push and shove on this, but this is insanity not to have a firing range that is in our existing justice center, that's in police departments. Not talking to you, I'm talking to somebody, other people in the room. And booking. Do we have Cleveland booking on site?
Do you want to talk about where we stand on?
Or do you want to talk about that? We could talk about that some other time
I think we should, yeah.
when we get,
Yeah,
okay, well,
that's a different.
but
that's
we're
another
talking to
conversation.
Cleveland about this because nothing in life is free? Okay,
Yeah. I have not been involved in those direct discussions, so you
okay.
have to.
As
talk
long
to
as
some
they're
others.
happening, that's
Yeah.
good. Is there anything else? We're close to the end. Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just one last question about the attorneys, defense attorneys in particular. Do they have enough space? Have they stated to have visitation areas available to them? I'd like to hear from them at a later meeting to make sure that they're going to, their needs are being met.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. So we met with Judge Shaughnessy, the public defenders, and Judge Mattia was also there to have that very discussion about making sure that they had enough space. So as a result of that conversation, we've added more secure booths in each housing unit so that as folks leave, if they're in trial or whatever, they can have a private conversation with their lawyer over Zoom in a secure way, in a secure and private way. So they are happy with what we have provided.
Anything about probation, or that's going to remain downtown and they'll be going back and forth?
Yeah, so we are in conversations with Greg and his team around the probation, you know, the needs around the probation department and who might be located there versus kind of traveling back and forth.
Okay, last question. Yes, I have one. Okay, time is our enemy. Mr. Kelly, then Mr. Miller, and we're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Laurel, right back to what you were discussing there. Is there going to be opportunity for video arraignments also?
Yes, so there is a whole section for video arraignments for municipalities, for the Common Pleas Court. I can't remember the exact number of spaces that there are, but that will be an option.
That's it, and the equipment is in.
All right, and we'll get further into that. Mr. Miller, take us home.
Yes, will there be opportunity for face-to-face visits between family and inmates at the pods?
Why don't you-
Sorry. Yeah, I can just stay here. Yes, there are several spaces for in-person visitation for families. We're particularly looking at the sentence population for that and our youth population. As well, there will be non-contact booths that are available. And both of the contact and non-contact will be available for the defense lawyers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a good first step. More to come, I'm sure. We'll get through this as best we can. I think we primed the pump with some ideas of the concerns that we have, and I'm sure those will be addressed. Is there any miscellaneous business? Hearing none? Thank you.